The At Your Insta podcast is brought to you by Comic Town. Check them out at www.comictown.net or search for Comic Town Gaming Center on Facebook. Hello, and welcome to At Your Insta. My name is Morgan, and I'm here with Mike.
Hello.
And we have a very special guest with us today. We have our friend Minh, who is on the Eternal Struggle podcast. Is that
Indeed,
correct?
yep.
It's another local podcast here out of the Columbus area. And Dave is living it up in Florida, so we decided to have a nice guest on. And your podcast is mainly focused on, legacy and then some financial stuff?
We talk mostly about legacy overall, some vintage here or there, some modern
vintage
here and
makes
there.
sense, yeah.
And a lot of like financial stuff.
Fair enough. So a lot of stuff that we don't necessarily talk about. So we figured it'd be a good idea to, have Minh on, allow him to talk a little bit about his podcast. If you guys want to try something else a little bit different than what we might not offer, and then get his insight on things we don't usually talk about. So. But we, of course, have a fun-filled episode for you folks today. We have some more community stuff, a little bit of spoiler talk, a little bit of tinfoil hat conspiracy theories about Shadows over Innistrad, and some new judge foils, which are pretty exciting. And then we have our competitive segment where we break down, GP Paris, SCG Indy, and then we have a very special segment for, having a special guest on that we'll get to later and tell you all about when we get there. Anyway, let's start off the show with the community segment. So, we did get a new land cycle that is going to be coming out in Shadows over Innistrad, which is very exciting. And these lands don't necessarily have a name. Again, I don't understand why we need to fight with each other about what we're going to call these lands that we play. It started with, Battle for Zendikar, and now it extends into here. Shadowlands is an awesome name for these lands. But who knows what they'll actually be settled on. But they're actually interesting sort of lands. So they're all ally colors, and the mechanic on them is if you play them, you reveal a basic land of the corresponding color. So a basic, let's say you're playing Game Trail, which is the green-red land. If you reveal a forest card or a mountain card, they come into play untapped. If you don't, they come into play tapped. And it's the same thing for all of them, and they're all, again, ally colors. And Port City, I think, is the blue-white one. The art on that is good art. It does not strike me as being blue-white, though, unfortunately. It's amazing art. I really love it. It's the background of my phone right now. But my gosh, that is a lot of black, a lot of black, and a lot of red, and a lot of white. It looks like a Mardu land. But whatever. No, that's totally blue-white. Definitely. That won't confuse people at all.
I thought we did. By the way, they're Peekaboo lands. I don't care what anyone says.
Peekaboo Lands works. It's cute.
I like Shadowlands personally. So.
It reminds me of Peekaboo Street because I somehow remember that person, the skier from the Blistex commercials. I believe she did. Yeah, Peekaboo Street. I don't know why, because her name's Peekaboo. It's a weird name.
Yeah, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Why do you remember this?
I don't know. Why do I remember this and nothing important? I have no idea. This is the brain I was bestowed with. So,
so they do continue their this theme of like the art is really specific to Innistrad, like you said, is really sweet and specific to Innistrad, and
very
we
much
have
so.
Flavor text on only 2 of them. Thanks for that one.
Yeah, that.
But you get the idea that none of these names though are specific.
No.
So they can be reprinted pretty easily. As far as lands, I really found them to be fairly unexciting. I know a lot of people were excited about them, but like, they're fine.
Yeah.
They're going to work for standard. They're not going to see play in any other format. I think I saw someone suggest Legacy, and I think
Someone did say Legacy, and I quickly shut them down. Not even close.
Yeah, these are definitely just standard lands, and that's fine. I think Dave was kind of comparing them to like the Mirrodin lands, the fast lands.
Yeah,
if you will.
like they're just Mirrodin lands are obviously bad top decks late. These are like possibly worse than that though. Like they could be better. There's a chance it could be untapped late, but it could also be worse because like they could come into play tapped on like turn 2 or turn 3, depending on how your hand works out. And of course, it's going to put a lot of tension on mana bases for decisions on like how many non-basics or I guess non-land type cards you can run, because we have obviously the battle lands. But I don't know, the idea of playing this in your deck and then like drawing it when you need your 6th land and just like staring at it and
You have a Chandra in your hand, you're just like
and just like vomiting onto the table just uncontrollably. Like I don't know, it gives me fits, I suppose. But They'll be fine. People saw these and immediately assumed like it'd be a lot easier to build 3-color, and maybe it is. But the mana bases, mana bases I've started seeing in articles and everything, none of the 3-color mana bases really excite me because if you're playing this, then like you're locking yourself out of being able to play too many of the man lands, which is one of the real draws to being able to do that. So
absolutely,
it'll be interesting to see how people build mana bases now when we've had such a, I don't know, like going down to the like nude beach experience for this one. Like it's very freeing and
play whatever
everyone's doing whatever they want, and and then like summer ends and everyone has to go back to school and they have to make like decisions and
that's pretty much exactly what this is. And a lot of people mentioned that like these combo with the battle lands,
correct,
so to speak,
because they have the basic land types on them,
right? But they also don't.
Yeah, like that's kind of the awkward thing where it's like, oh well, I want to keep this basic land in my hand, but I also want it on the battlefield. It's kind of like a
Oh, and you reveal your battle land to this to keep this untapped, but like it doesn't help your battle land come in. Yeah, it's again tension, but I don't know if this makes a kind of like positive tension that I talk about. This is more of like I feel like this would be a feel bad more often than it's a feel good, but certainly playable. Just like sort of lackluster. I do want to say points to us that we discussed reveal lands as possibilities last week. Granted, we discussed them based on tribal creature types,
correct,
but whatever, it's okay.
And I think it's important that we do have these lands for like 2-color aggressive decks. Like we needed, lands that have a potentiality to come in untapped. They aren't exactly what maybe an aggressive deck wants, but I mean, like this makes black-red aggressive like a possibility rather than like something that is not at all possible.
Much better than it looked like last week.
Far-fetched dream, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And then they printed the cards for it too. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, they seem to be really pushing that.
How cruel would that be if they're just like, here's all these red-black vampire cards.
You can't play these lands.
Ooh, but you have no way to cast
enjoy these tab lands that you have currently.
Yep.
We also got a new mythic today that we just wanted to talk about because it is Hypnotoad apparently. If you read the Magic stories, what used to be Uncharted Realms, but it is the Gitrog. Monster?
The Get Wrecked monster?
Yes.
Get Wrecked monster?
Or the Get Good monster, as Reddit has called it. Yeah.
I wish they didn't have to say monster though. Like they kept calling it just the Gitrog in the story, so it's like, okay, call it the Gitrog. I think it feels more legendary if it's just the
Agreed
Gitrog.
completely, yeah.
So I don't know.
But this thing is pretty good. So it's a 6/6 for 3 generic black-green. It's a legendary frog horror. So hey, you can play this with your thing in the ice and it doesn't get bounced. Upside value.
Definitely something that belongs in the same deck with Thing in the Ice.
100%. I don't see how they wouldn't. Has Death Touch, which cool. Your 6/6 has Death Touch. Congratulations. And it says at the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice the Gitrog monster. Unless you sacrifice a land. Well, that seems bad. But hey, you can play an additional land on each of your turns. Well, that seems good.
Reasonable.
Yeah. Reasonable. And then it says whenever one or more land cards are put into your graveyard from anywhere, draw a card. That seems great. Now we already have I always forget the Drown Yard Temple. That's what it is. Yeah. Which is the land that
not Drown Yard.
Yeah, produces colorless, but also comes back from the graveyard if you pay 3 and it comes in the battlefield tapped. So see, we already have a land that is abusable by this effect. Also, it's very important to note that it says from anywhere. So if it happens to go from your hand or from your library directly to your graveyard, or the more funny thing that I really hope happens at some point in time within the standard format, if your opponent processes a land you have in exile.
Ooh. It works out, yep.
Man.
That would also cause this to trigger. I want someone to have to do that and make their opponent draw a card. So there's a lot of potential upside to this card. What do you guys think about it?
I personally think it's a fantastic card. I'm not that familiar with a lot of, I guess, graveyard-esque strategies over any format, really, unless you count, like, old RTR-esque standard. But the card itself has it's got a lot of text on it, and Death Touch for some godforsaken reason. I just don't understand it. But it's a very powerful effect for what it is. It's a 5-mana 6/6 that has huge upsides. And more importantly, it combos with the Dredge in such a way that, like, if you have a Dakmor Salvage, you can draw you can mill over your entire library. Mm-hmm. So I could see it potentially seeing some play in Eternal formats as well.
Yeah, it has that potentiality, which is nice. I mean, I know people really love Dredge. I really love that mechanic. Really love not playing Magic, apparently.
Yep.
And that's perfectly fine. and maybe this is a way that you can find a way to cheat this into play somehow, and get that effect and win instantaneously or something like that. Who knows?
This card single-handedly assures that Dread Return never ever gets off the modern ban list.
Never at
like
all.
it wasn't going to anyways. But no, historically, 5-mana 6/6 green and black creatures have been pretty good. If I don't know if either of you ever played Standard when Spirit Monger was a card, but it was unbeatable. So
So a lot of people have mentioned to me actually. There are a few vintage forums even talking about playing it in Vintage Dredge, possibly.
I mean, Vintage Dredge. I mean, you obviously you have ways to get on the battlefield that don't involve actually hard casting it. So.
Right, Dread Return, that kind of thing. But in most cases, it's a little too slow for that deck. But I mean, the fact that there's even conversation about it is kind of a big deal. It's been many years since anything has been talked about
in that deck.
Sense, yeah.
Wizards has tried really hard to not let that be.
Yeah.
I will say that I think one of the most, for standard purposes, the fact that it's a 6/6 gold creature puts it in a really interesting spot right now. We lost Murderous Cut, so as far as removal spells, Roast doesn't kill it. You can't ultimate price it. So it's in a position where it's very powerful. Yeah, Death Touch is weird, but it's also bigger than a lot of the formats. Scary monsters. Reality Smasher and things like this. So I don't know. It's certainly playable. It'll be interesting to see what people are able to do with it.
Mm-hmm. Upon further review, it might have Death Touch because it needs to be able to attack through World Breakers. Maybe.
Does it need to be able to attack the World Breakers?
Maybe. I don't know.
The one thing I will say that's weird about this card, I think puts added pressure on maybe building this deck, is so we have a green-black mana creature that 2-drop now.
Yeah.
I don't remember its name.
Deathcap Cultivator.
Thank you.
Yes.
But I don't know if this creature is something you necessarily want to be ramping out, because even though you get to play 2 lands per turn, you could definitely ramp it out on turn 3 or 4, and then have it find a way for someone to actually kill it, and then sacrifice the trigger on the stack. Okay, I'm gonna keep my sack of land. Okay, cool, kill your guy, and then you're and you ramped it into play, so now you're way behind. So it's this weird 5-drop that you just you know what, 5 is fine. I want to play it on turn 5. So
yeah,
maybe get that extra land drop that turn, but
right. It'll certainly be interesting. I think that maybe people might underrate this card in some facet, but I think it's just because we're so used to it. Now something that is sort of potentially a downside is if it gets bounced, it probably feels pretty bad.
Reflector Mage.
Reflector Mage probably makes you you could potentially get that extra land for the turn, so it might has an effect for entering the battlefield. But oh man, getting your 5/5, your 6/6 for 5 outs.
Just the wind in your upkeep.
Right,
Yep.
just rough. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But with mana bases as they are, I'm not sure if you'll really see Collected Company plus Reflector Mage being something that is super viable.
I mean, Reflector Mage by itself is definitely still viable.
Yeah.
Yes.
Instant Speed Reflector Mage, though, is a little bit more of some wreckage, for sure. Yeah. But that, I think, that's all the spoilers we're going to be talking about for today. Obviously, we're going to have our extravaganza here soon, so...
Palooza,
I'm sorry.
What's wrong with you?
I don't
How long
know.
have you been doing this?
Too long, clearly.
Anyway. Long enough. Can't remember Palooza versus Extravaganza.
They're both kind of the same thing.
They're definitely not the same thing. They're two very different things.
You barely are on here. You don't have the right to override me.
I don't know. I kind of want to hear him out.
No, I own the equipment. You can't replace me. Anyway, moving on to our lovely tinfoil hat aliens guy situation we have going on Reddit. Eldrazi.
Yes.
So there's this thing that is going on where people are cracking the clues. They're collecting the clues and solving the mystery apparently on the Shadows over Innistrad big baddie, if you will. So we have a bunch of different clues that have been released as tokens. So they're
Literal clues.
Yeah, literal clue tokens, and they're all different art, and they have different flavor text on them and everything like that, which is fairly interesting. Mm-hmm. Now, from what I'm understanding is that throughout all the variations of all the languages, you can follow a particular pattern, and this pattern was based on the page number of your particular language's Tamiyo's journal entry, basically. Mm-hmm. And if you follow the pattern throughout all the flavor text of the clue tokens, it spells out a message, and this is again consistent throughout every language of these clue tokens. And the message is this: remember this, they came as three, which is part of the flavor text for Ugin's Insight,
Yeah.
referencing the three Eldrazi Titans.
Yep.
Now, you could say, like, well, that is just like a weird coincidence if you're kind of crazy.
And people are just like all over Reddit, Jim carrying each other, like, and this was this is 23, and then this was 23.
23. So with that, kind of being the case, it's pretty damning evidence pointing towards Emrakul, being a part of Shadows over Innistrad block in some persuasion. Now, this could be a very well-placed red herring, which would be also interesting kind
Or
of
a totally unintentional red herring. That would be the best. Like, we don't know how that happened.
They're like, sometimes they're just things that are even outside of our scope. Apparently this was one of them.
Guys, we got to level with you. Emrakul, when we created her, we wrote about her. The more we write about Emrakul, the more power we give her. She's real.
We've actually created
Actually Cthulhu.
a giant flying
real
spaghetti
one.
monster.
You literally can't buy Shadows or Innistrad. The more you buy, the more powerful she becomes.
Yep.
What are you doing, you fools?
Run as fast as you can.
So, with all this kind of happening, it's getting harder and harder to, believe that it isn't going to, be
In the set.
yeah,
Yeah.
or at least in
In the
Eldritch
block,
Moon.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be in Shadows.
More than likely not.
I feel like that's a big reveal they'd want to leave for Eldritch Moon, for sure, and a huge reveal. So we'll see. If anything more comes of this, I am super interested in this whole entire thing that they kind of have orchestrated. The flavor for the set again is just
It's amazing.
it's just so overwhelming.
It's great.
And they really, I feel like when they did Innistrad the first time, at least for Innistrad and Dark Ascension, like the flavor was all there. I mean, theoretically, flavor-wise, Avacyn Restored was still kind of fine, but even like the actual, cards and the actual set is kind of a sour point for a lot of people.
That was back. That was the last time I actually played Standard. It was back then.
And you never stopped playing those cards because you play Miracles and Legacy.
Yep.
You're just like, I can stop right here, guys. I'm done.
It was the Snapcaster Mage that did it for me, to be quite honest.
And then when we've had like some blocks that have come and gone and that have led Theros had a lot of flavor, but it wasn't necessarily super resonant, or maybe the cards just put a lot of bad feelings in the air with all the mono blue and mono black decks that were just kind of boring after a while. But I feel like everyone gets so excited for Innistrad. They got excited for the first time around. We had no idea what it was, and they're excited again because they just they just know
Knock
this
it out of the
element.
park, yeah.
Yeah, and it's really funny because in D&D they released like a new campaign book that's like
Ravenloft?
no,
Is that what
it's Strahd is what it's
yeah.
called,
Mhm.
and it's like, oh, okay, so you guys are just like super into this right now
Yeah.
where you are, or at least at that point in time when both of those things were being probably created at the same time, I imagine. So it's just like, yeah, we watched a lot of like horror movies at this point in the office.
I think one of the really cool things about this, so if we're right and everyone is right, and in Eldritch Moon everyone goes, that's no moon, it's Emrakul, right? Because I'm holding out hope that reference can still be.
That's what happens,
popular.
yeah.
But so many people were like, Morgan, you were saying that's how you were like, I don't want more Eldrazi, it's too much Eldrazi. But I've seen all over Reddit, I've seen people saying like, I didn't want more Eldrazi, but the way they're doing this, I think I'm okay with it.
It's more like the Lovecraftian theme of keeping the horror just
Absolutely.
out of reach.
Like just that storyline alone. If you read the Get Rog monster story today, like that reads like classic Lovecraftian style horror. Like
The Dunwich horror specifically.
yeah, very much like city on the edge of a body of water that becomes more and more ominous. Normal people taking on the roles of cultists or secret organizations. Yeah, so it's really awesome. I'm excited, especially since they sort of hinted at this. They failed miserably in it in the last block, but they hinted that there was, on Zendikar, Eiley is a part of this group. There is a cult on Zendikar that were celebrating the coming of like the sweet embrace of death, and like quite literally this. If you never read Lovecraftian horror, it's some of the most depressing thing you can ever. He replaced like regular pantheons of gods or like traditional Christian gods with this idea that there are elder beings that are here to kill us, and if you worship them, at least that's the cultist idea. If you worship them, you die first. Therefore, you suffer
Less.
the less
Yeah.
or the least. So they really sort of failed at capturing that idea on Zendikar. So maybe they weren't trying to. Maybe they were just like,
threw Eldrazi at you left, right, and center.
well, maybe they were just trying to show you that an organization like this could exist, so you could buy it better, on a plane that makes more sense with it, anyways. So
Right. Sidebar: if you haven't read Lovecraft's works, you probably should. They're definitely free all over the internet. So
That's
you
absolutely
should
true.
Definitely do that.
Absolutely true. That go read like the Mountains of Madness, and then you can wonder why everyone gets sad every time that Del Toro tells us he's going to make the movie and then not make the movie, and then make the movie and then not make the movie.
All right. Lastly, we do have some new judge foils, and one of them is definitely something that a lot of legacy players, cube enthusiasts, have been wanting for a while. It's Shardless Agent.
Yep.
That what was it? A plane chase card, I believe.
Yes.
I believe it was Plane Chase originally. Yeah.
Plane Chase All Star. Finally getting a shiny treatment. I know that Dave is, the perfect person to talk about, at least cube-wise, because it's in his cube and it's great. And it'll be exciting to actually get that nice, upgrade to a proper foil.
And they're using the original art. So.
Yeah, the original art,
which
so.
is great art.
Yeah,
no,
no
for
need
sure.
to change it. And then, lastly, is temporal manipulation.
Which is like the super expensive time warp. That's this reprint's been a long time coming. That's new art though, and I love that art.
The art is really good in the new art.
Yeah. So pretty, awesome judge foil. So if you're, get nodded, I think it's the exemplar program is how you get those nowadays. So, definitely, if you're a judge, awesome. You may want to talk to Dave. You may or may or not want
Or
to
legacy players in general.
find a way to,
it's the
to obtain
Empire,
a shardless agent from you, and he will be greatly appreciative. Now, this also there was a thing that happened where there was an Isuza Lost But Seeking Judge promo that was misfiltered into the repacks that they go to big box stores, basically. So someone was able to acquire that. That is not in this, at least for now. So we don't know if it's been something that they decided not to do or if it's something that's coming later. But we'll kind of have to wait and see. So if you're hoping to get your Isuza for your commander deck at this point in time, or if you're still clinging on to playing Titans really early, you might have to wait for that, unfortunately. But that art for that Souza is really nice. So if you haven't seen it, then I would highly encourage you to at least look at. They've updated the art somewhere.
It's definitely on Reddit. So
Yeah, or something like that. So yeah, go take a look at it, and maybe that could just be like something they also put into the From the Vault lore, and they're going to be coming out with too. But it could be interesting to see.
Yeah.
But that is everything for the community. Let's go ahead and shift into the competitive segment. So, first we're going to talk about GP pairs. It had a total of 1,510 players. It's a pretty good size, and this was for standard. And it was won by. I asked how to pronounce it. It's.
I told you. So I made a joke in show notes about how Morgan would struggle with this one, and Minh was very nice. He's like, "Oh, I can help you say that." I'm like, "Oh, after Morgan butchers it, because we got to let him have at least one chance."
We're gonna wait. Yeah.
Yeah, it's Peter. I can't. It's just I've totally lost it.
He wants to say Shrek. That's the best part. Yeah, Peter Shrek.
We apologize, Peter, if you're listening to this. For the record.
Now that you say that, that's all I want to say. It's Shurek.
Minh, go ahead.
Okay, it's Peter Sahurek.
Yeah, Sahurek. That's what I forgot. I forgot how to say the middle part. I knew how to start and how to end.
It's exactly the way you wouldn't expect to be able to say it.
Sahurek. Yes. Playing Grixis Control so good that the official Wizards page couldn't even print it.
Too hot for
It's actually been down since the event went up on the site.
Oh, they don't go back and fix those things.
Yeah.
Oh no, it's gone.
They literally do not. I don't know if you have a lot of
I don't go back
reference
very
for this,
often,
but no, they when there's an error like this, very rarely do they ever go back and fix it because they're just done. They're like, all right, moving on.
If you do want to see his list, you can go to MTG Goldfish, which is a great resource for deck lists, and they have a nice page for GP pairs. And he defeated Ben Stark in the finals, and Ben Stark was playing Jeskai Black. Rounding out the top 8, we have Bant Company, piloted by Ryuichi Tamada, Abs and Aggro, piloted by Martin Yuza, Esper Dragons by Oh, excuse me. It looks like Amy on here, but it's definitely Arnie. Arnie Huschenbeth. Yeah. And then we have Four Color Rally, piloted by Giuseppe Real. Sure.
He was also another GP top 8 competitor from like forever ago.
Mm-hmm.
As a matter of fact, that entire top 8 is really starts.
Oh
to
yeah,
look-
and then we have like Blue Absent, piloted by Fabian Friedrich, and then Mario Green by Paolo Magnani. So definitely, a pretty decent representation of how Standard is kind of looking at the end of the Oath of the Gatewatch.
Rainbow Lands.
Yeah, lots of different kind of colors. Everyone, some people going into a fourth color a lot of the time, but showing that even your typical 3-color mana base can still be fine, and definitely a different picture than what we'll see in Indy, with only one 4-color rally list showing up at the top 8. Let me take a look at this Grixis control list. I know that this had sort of been picking up steam as of recent, and it looks like pretty much what you would expect from a control sort of list. We have in reality we have 3 creatures with Cletus, and we have Jace as pretty much a planeswalker for the most part, but does a very good Merfolk looter impression for this particular list. And then we just have a whole bunch of spells. Seeing things like language show up as being played again, which I feel like is something that was well positioned in the format going into this weekend with a lot of the company decks and things like that kind of showing up, and especially people are just leaning more towards creature decks in general, and then going into just having like a bunch of 2-ofs from what it looks like, literally just like 2 Duress, 2 Disdainful Stroke, 2 Grasp of Darkness. It's really funny because a lot of times when you see like new formats, this is how you see sideboards as being like 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. This is like my main deck is going to be a bunch of 2s, which is fairly interesting. And I mean, why not? You have Jace to filter through all the bad cards you don't need, and then if you somehow need them in the end, you can always flash them back. So.
Basically have 4 of everything anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
And dig through time selection gets a lot higher when you have a lot more
Right.
targets to look at.
For sure. And one of the 2 of is definitely Chandra Flamecaller. Card's so hot right now. If you didn't get them while they were low, I feel sorry for you going into the new standard format. That card is going to be bonkers, and I can't wait to play a lot of it. So, but yeah, it's fairly standard from what I would see for this particular archetype. I would say this archetype is not very popular, but
it made 2 top 8 appearances this weekend because we'll talk about Indy shortly. I do think it's also interesting that you said about win conditions. This one is playing 4 fumaroles. So
very true.
You're starting to see fumarole come up, and fumarole is the kind of card that in a control deck, when you've gained board control, 4 at a time is a huge chunk out of your lands. You've seen that with Colonnade. That is a very
The first
again.
that's going to make. Yeah.
So that's 4. Not comparing Colonnade to fumarole, but I am saying hitting for 4 at a time out of your lands is
very strong.
Yeah, pretty impressive. So. I really like this deck. It's kind of sad that this deck has only sort of asserted itself in the last 2 or 3 weeks or so. So like it's been there in the background. It saw some play at the MOCS, but I was like, all right, I'm ready to take on the format. Here I am. Format's over.
Yeah, format's over, and decks like this just.
There have been a few decks that I've done in the past though.
Oh yeah,
for sure.
Some late bloomers definitely happen from format to format, and that's going to be that way when the format gets closer and closer to being solved. With the new rotation that we have,
It's gonna happen
that
more
window is
frequently,
smaller.
yeah.
The solved window is not something that we have a whole lot of time spent, which is we all should be pretty grateful for the most part. Living in a solved format is miserable, as we have all been through. Mono black and standard
Their
just being the
standard
best deck
was-
forever, and now that we have such short rotations, we don't have to live in that misery. But I'm glad that a deck like this could finally find its hold, because I know control, people have been bemoaning that it had been so bad for so many rotations and things like that. So I'm glad to see some kind of pick it up. I mean, we also have Jeskai Black showing up in second place. This is one of the other control-y decks. Definitely playing a lot of spells, but Ben Stark getting a little more aggressive. Playing the Mantis Rider version. So kind of not surprising there. Also see a Chandra Flamecaller. If you missed out, $20 card. Sorry, bro.
Seriously, you should have bought him like yesterday.
Oh yeah, I bought him like the first week. And but yeah, this is another sort of like control deck that we see I mean, it'll kind of be interesting talking about these 3-color mana bases and them just not being able to really exist. Are there any particular instances across the tournament that we want to like kind of pick out, point at, take a look at?
Yeah, so if you move, so the decks are fairly standard, and once you move into the top 32, you really see that Dark Jeskai and Rally really assert themselves. I do want to take a look at the 18th place list, though, because if you really want to see how far people have pushed these mana bases, I think you should look no further than, I'm going to try this name. So, Ashraf Abu.
Close.
What do you think?
I can't really correct you because I have no idea.
Okay, well, I'm going to say that's
How
what it
can
is.
you say close if you don't even know?
This is literally called 5-color good stuff. 4 Jace, 2 Den Protector, 4 Siege Rhino, 4 Mantis Rider, 1 Soulfire Grandmaster, 2 Akum Firebird.
Why not?
Isn't that like 4-mana bird?
That's yes, it
The
has
3-mana
landfall.
bird? Okay.
4-mana
mean,
bird.
Okay.
Who doesn't want a Firebird? Those cards are great.
We have
Historically, they have been, I guess.
Treasure Cruise, Painful Truths, Roast, 1 Transgress, Crackling Dooms. But if you look at the mana base, it's 16 fetch lands, 3 basics, and then 6 battle lands. So there's actually only 9 legitimate lands in the deck. It's all fetches, and you're playing double red, white, blue, black, white, green.
Excuse me
Red,
while I
white,
go have
black.
a seizure over here in the corner. I can't. As a purveyor of good mana in every format, I can't.
Apparently, this guy did not give any chainsaws
Nope.
about his mana base. No chainsaws were given.
And yeah, and you took 18th. I mean,
More power
I'll
to
give him
him.
a chainsaw, whatever.
taking a Akum Firebird to the top.
Hey, that card stays after rotation. Keep your eyes on it. Could be hot.
Well, it's a Phoenix.
Yeah, I know.
It
I
is in
understand.
fact a Phoenix.
I understand. It probably is very hot. Yeah, that's something I'm kind of glad won't continue existing. I think we need to, pull back. But like, I can't believe Wizards didn't kind of didn't predict this.
No, I'm sure they did. They said it was a mistake.
Yeah, they said they didn't predict like the degeneracy of it.
Oh,
so
well,
much.
that's just foolish. But
Yeah, I
look
fully.
at this sideboard.
Yeah.
You have a Chandra. You have so double red. You have Transgress the Mind, right? Black. You have a bunch of black spells. Then you have Ojutai's Command, which is blue white. Like,
Yeah.
Yep.
I understand.
Why not?
You
cares?
can, so why not, right?
Yeah.
I guess.
I remember originally when the set came out that Frank Carson wrote an article about the mana bases and how the 4th color was basically free.
Right.
And everyone just took it to heart. And that's basically
And they were like,
what
"Hey,
happened
maybe the 4th color is free. Maybe I can steal the 5th one."
here. Get away with the 2.
Could you imagine if we still had access to Chromanticore in this format,
Oh, God.
just for the value?
It'd actually be possibly castable on turn 5.
I think consistently you can cast it on turn 5. Just like a one of that'd be super sweet.
Anyway, all right. Well, enough with GP Paris. Let's go to something a little bit more in our backyard.
Closer to home.
Yeah, there was a Star City Games Open in Indianapolis, Indiana. There was a total of 729 players attending, and it felt like a good size since
Just under half the GP, so.
Yeah. Since we were there, it didn't feel like there was too many people. Sometimes when you go to the Open, there's just too many people here.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's an indication of the format kind of being what it is, and people not really wanting to do that. So it was very manageable. Star City Games ran a great tournament from top to bottom. There were some long times between rounds, but I feel like there has to be something that changed. Like I know their actual like event reporter changed and how they're actually reporting larger events. And I know that from the judge community that we've talked to, that it's made it slower.
And more than that, we saw a number of times where like Rally almost works like especially if there's mirrors, almost works like, not to make a legacy reference here, but it was like High Tide, where like once you go to time, like you're waiting until the last possible turn, the last possible setup, and then you're going off and hitting 90 triggers. So like you saw a lot of those matches go to turns, and then like in turn 5 of turns, and they're already well past the time on the clock. Then they're rallying, then they're triggering, then they're drawing 20 cards, and you're like, okay, I'm really glad I'm here right now. This is,
I would rather watch a High Tide mirror than a Rally mirror, for what it's worth.
they can just all
They can both like
yeah,
not
just like light a match,
exist.
throw them in
I'd
the
be
trash
fine with
bag.
that.
Versus RFP Line Longmore. I don't mean to offend you.
Or any other High Tide players out there. There are more than one.
Sure. You keep telling yourself that, man.
Okay.
No, I'm just kidding. before we get into the top 8 and who won and everything like that, Mike and I were both in attendance. So how did we do? Well, not well. I did really bad. My head was not in the game at all whatsoever. I could not focus for the life of me. Just some outside influences getting in my head, and just wasn't really focused on the game, and it showed. I made more mistakes than you would expect from me. I guess we'll put it that way. I'm not definitely not like the cleanest of players or the most accurate of players because I get what I put in, and I don't put in a whole lot of time comparatively to other people into the game. So, but even for me, it was a pretty poor showing. So, hopefully, I'll be refocused for the next time that we go to a big event. But it's not for a while, in all honesty. So, but I played Four Color Company. Speaking of greedy mana bases. And
That's the Knuckleblade deck, right?
Yeah,
Knuckleblade
yeah.
Mantis Better deck.
Yeah. Deck was it was interesting. I definitely had the most reps. I definitely had the most reps of that deck, so that's what I chose to play. I was also considering playing the Monoreto Drowsy list that was put by
Better.
that was posted by Chris Van Meter, which of course the more aggressive, the better version got 13th place, piloted by Ken Ketter. So clearly a mistake was made at some point in time. It was within my deck choice, but that's the kind of deck that I want to play going forward, and will hopefully still be viable post rotation as well. So why not try to pick it up now and get some reps in it with the current format?
They're really cheap right now. You should do it.
Oh yeah, I have everything for the deck already. So
Yeah, I felt bad watching some of your matches because, like I said, I will also vouch for him. There were some things outside of the game, so normally I would give him hell for for making excuses. But
Rightly so.
I'll let him off this time. But there were a number of times where like bad mulligans with that deck, and you just like couldn't hit a red source for any reason. And you really saw how like in this format, like you could mulligan and the greed could get you.
Yep.
So that was unfortunate, and saw a couple games like that where it was just like, oh well. Cool flooded strand. You really need a
Don't
red
get
source.
red mana.
yeah, it was rough, but I mean like overall, like I still had a great time over the weekend. Like we stayed with our friend Elliot, who we've mentioned on the cast, and who will be excited that we said his name. And
Hi, Elliot.
Hi, Elliot.
him and his wife were gracious hosts, and we had a really good time. Went out to a favorite eatery, and just like saw people we don't normally see, and like just had a really good like relaxing time overall. And Jordan actually was one of the other people that we went with, and he made day 2, so we got to hang out at the event, do a couple of drafts, which were really fun. Because I had never drafted the format at all, and so that was nice. And it was overall a good time for sure.
Yeah, it was funny because Jordan like day 2s, and then like he's like, all right, what do I have to do to min cash here? Because there were like 9 people over the cut for day 2. And it's like, well, at least one would should probably do it. He lost his first 3 rounds on the day
Oh, good.
to good players in a row too. They
Yeah.
like Jeff Hoagland, I think it was Chris Dickerson,
Mhm.
and then Brian DeMars all in
Oh, wow.
consecutive rounds.
Yeah.
So then it
Wow.
was just like, buddy, you're not going to cash.
Just
So,
stop.
I played Band Company, and I finished a pretty pathetic 5-4. I definitely felt like I said before I picked up Band Company that Collected Company is a card that sort of worries me as a card. It's not the kind of card I like to play. Obviously, I played it and qualified for a Pro Tour with the card. Sometimes you just
Congrats,
can't.
by the way. For that.
Thank you very much. People asked Hoagland about that this weekend. Like, you said that card is like bad mathematically. It's like, yeah, well, sometimes the format's too. The format's this big, the card's good enough. But I definitely had a couple of like outright misses with Collected Company. And like twice in critical game 3s.
Wow.
So like I played. I thought I played fairly well. There was I think there was one game I lost a match against Rally, and I definitely punted an early turn and missed some damage. Just like attacked with a Sylvan Advocate with one in my hand into company mana, and then like he company hit Reflector Mage, and then I couldn't play Jace and an Advocate. And if I would have just played it, if I just played it before combat, I just like lost 2 mana, and I lost possibly up to 6 damage through the game. So it was like just a really bad play. But like I played against Cedric Phillips round 2, and he was playing what I think. In all honesty, if you want to play 4 Color Company, like what Morgan's talking about, go look at his deck tech.
Yeah.
His list was, I think, perfection. He played Mantis Riders, but also Deathmiss Raptor Den Protector, as opposed to trying to like shove Knuckleblade in there. And he played like Dragon Master Outcast. He said everything in that deck was good except for he's playing Netcaster Spider in the sideboard.
He mentioned at the very end of it is like, play my deck, just don't play the Netcaster Spiders.
He game one, like he cast 3 Collected Companies to my 1, and then the 4th one finally killed me. So the game 2 we played this huge drawn out match, and I finally hit a Wingrat Rock to take it. And when I did that, we had like 4 minutes left on the clock.
You were in the feature match area, right?
Yeah, we were. Yeah, we were in the feature match area. So like, play this huge game 2, go to game 3. I keep on the draw a 2-lander with like double advocate and like just like collect a company and solid spells all the way up. Miss 3 land drops and he went Jace into Reflector Mage to bounce my guy into collect a company, hit double Mantis Rider.
Oh god.
So we were no longer even playing for the. He literally so Cedric's fun to play against anyways. He goes looks over, he goes touchdown, and I was like, oh no, and he was like Rider. So we went from playing like this huge like 30-minute game to just like grindy like. And I'm like, okay, well maybe we can maybe we'll draw, maybe I can sneak a win to not like hitting land drops and just dying. So I lost to Rally again. I punted the game 1, the game 2. I definitely faced down 4 Reflector Mages by turn 6, and he had dispels for my 2 Collected Companies. Like sometimes you just
it just happens.
Yeah. But I had game 3s. I had a game 3 against shoot, what's the enchantment now? Hardened Scales. I had a game 3. We played a 30-minute game 2. We had almost no time on the clock, and I lost to triple Hardened Scales, double Dramoka's Command in game 3 on turn 5, and I could have played around it. Could have played around it for the draw and messed up. And if I would have played around it for the draw, I could have day 2'd if I had not, whatever. Yeah. And then same thing, then the Collected Companies in game 3 of the last round, it was literally like Collected Company hit a Den Protector, Collected Company hit nothing. I was like
hit like 1 or nothing. Yeah.
So it was like, okay, so we were on the the wrong side of variance a couple times there, but deck is still sweet. It was just one of those times where like when you flip over Collected Company, you look at nothing, you're just like,
yeah, you
really question why you're there. Yeah. You're just like, why did I pay money to do this?
I definitely had one of those moments towards the end of day 1. I was just like, I'm done. I'm just done with everything about life in general.
You just like very casually get up and just like walk away, and your opponent's like, "Do we want your stuff?" And you're just like,
"No, I've given up on life.
This life is not."
You can vendor it off. It's fine.
Yeah. Anyway, well, let's go into the top 8 and who actually won the whole thing. We have it listed in the show notes as the funkiest player around.
The funkiest player this side of Funky Town.
That's true. It's true. Is that a Toe Jam and Earl reference?
It could be. It could also just be like this. Like, won't you take me to
Funky Town?
Yeah, the song.
No, fair enough. Anytime I think about funk, I think about Toe Jam and Earl. A much maligned Sega Genesis game.
Maligned? I think
that game was pretty much universally loved.
Yeah, I don't. Maligned.
I think the people. I think that
it's a cult classic.
See, this is Morgan's desire to be a hipster coming out. Like he wants to pretend like it's like a hated game so he can like it. Because if people liked it, he's not allowed to like it.
Ah, I see.
He's nodding in agreement. He's not saying anything else.
Yeah, I'm not going to say anything else. Anyway, Andrew Funkhauser, playing 4-color Rally, was our winner. He defeated Esper Dragons, piloted by Robert Wright in the finals. We also have Owen Turtwald playing 4-color Rally. Big shock.
Just going around the country making money off this deck.
Yeah, he's like, I have a deck that I like. I'm going to make as much money before rotation.
It seems like a thing he does on a regular basis.
Oh, yeah. And then we also have Trevor Pacelli showing up with a 4-color Rally. Oh, and Noah Strassler showing up with 4-color Rally. Todd Anderson playing Jeskai Black. Again, another player that's like, I found a good deck that I want to play with. I'm just going to go around and make money with it. And then Ray Perez, friend of the show, playing Grixis Control. And then rounding out the top 8 is Anthony Eason playing Abzan Aggro.
Because you can't have a top 8 without a Rhino.
It's true. That would be sacrilege at this point in time. But yeah, we see like 4-color Rally. It was the most played deck for day 2. It's just its sheer dominance here in Indy.
Yeah, the day 2 metagame breakdown, it was 16, so it beat out Mardu Green by a full 7 copies.
Yeah,
God.
And it's kind of surprising to see Mardu Green not really show up here. That was definitely a very, very popular deck, at least here in the local meta. There's a lot of people that just love mid range in the Midwest.
It's
You know,
Siege Rhino.
period.
What do you
Period.
expect?
Like
Yeah.
you would just expect it to kind of really show up and here in the top eight we don't see it. We do see someone clearly better at me playing a potentially better four color company list showing up in ninth place, Christopher Day.
Nope, he had knuckle blades.
Oh, there you go. Clearly just a better player than I. But yeah, I mean, you know, when we get to the end of a standard season, it kind of gets to be lame duck, and there's only really so much that we can possibly say about it. Um, Overall, what do you guys think? Min, I don't know. You might not have a whole lot to say about the subject of standard, but overall, what do we think about Oath of the Gatewatch, standard season?
Better than battle.
Yeah.
I think I still think there were some glaring mistakes design wise. Not putting any sort of functional graveyard hate and like allowing these rally decks to exist. It doesn't feel like this doesn't feel like we wanted the format to be able to flex its muscles. This feels like we didn't catch this deck and it's a mistake. Yeah. Luckily, it got close to oppressive at times. A couple of GPs in like an event like this where like it won and took like 4 or 5 of the top 8 slots. Like for a standard deck, that's pretty strong. But for the most part, I think people did a good job fighting in the format and finding ways to fight against it. You're using the cards that were available, like Hell and Moonlight and stuff. So I do think that like if you overlook some of the errors, the mana base errors and the error of like not giving us even like a Tormod script, you know what I mean?
Even close to that.
So
it's like bringing in for as a reference that I can make at least, bringing in Stony Silence against Pod. That's the parallel here. Yeah,
very much so. Like you're just sort of desperate like for something. So I think it's pretty happy. I mean, you can see the format come full circle. Esper Dragons top 8's both events, which is a deck that I've been in love with since it first made its appearance.
And then it got real bad, and then apparently it got okay.
And then decent again. Yeah.
I mean, again, like if you can control the board and play counter spells, you can win.
Yeah.
So counter spells still insane.
A deck after my own heart, Yeah.
I love that deck. Sleeving that deck up for the first time, taking it to like the one PTQ I was allowed to play, or PPTQ I was allowed to play in last year.
Yeah, and then winning that PPTQ.
beating Jordan in the Esper Dragons mirror.
Oh god.
Oh man, that was sweet.
Oh god.
That included one game where we definitely decked. Like that's kind of
not surprising. Not surprising.
So it was sweet. I do moving aside from, do you have anything to add for standard?
Not really, no.
Okay. The one thing I do want to mention about, so we joked about Andrew Funkhauser's name. He played in top 8 matches. He played some incredible Magic, and I really
the finals. I watched the top 8. And it was phenomenal. It was great to see.
Okay, you watched. We were watching some of this in the car on the way back, and we were getting a little frustrated. And I guess I'll see if you felt the same way watching this, like especially when he was playing against Owen Turtenwald. It felt like they were consistently like, I don't know, like Turtenwald was like in control, even when he was like well behind.
They have a tendency to kind of outline players that have no names, and that's obviously something that you're going to be doing anyway because it's the storyline that matters. It's their quote, but I think he played phenomenal Magic, and it was mind-blowing, actually, how good it was.
The game against Turtenwald where he rallied for one to get the Sidisi's Faithful just to blow him out, like I thought that was masterful. Yes. And they were like, and they didn't even like pay attention to that line, and they were just like, oh, this is really good, and I'm like, he's been playing to this, like you can pay attention.
The entire game is mapped out to that moment.
So I really wish they would, and Matthias Hunt has gotten criticism for as a commentator, and I feel like they did okay this weekend. But I hope they would go back. The teams that aren't like Cedric and and Patrick would go back and maybe listen to some of this commentary. You come off as biased, and yes, your storyline is about the players, but it's also the storyline is also that like any player can do this, and for a player like Funkhauser to come in here and show just how good he is with this deck, like he beat the guy who was probably considered to be the best 4-color rally player. Like in the game, you know what I mean?
Absolutely. Also, just the #1 rated Magic player in the world, too.
You know what I mean? And that doesn't mean he's better at the deck than Owen. Doesn't mean he's a better Magic player than Owen. He probably is not. You know what I mean? But in this one instance, he outplayed the best player in the world, and you should be
recognizing that.
Yeah, you should be commentating that narrative. So I do hope they go back and do that. Not to take it away from I don't know how I could take away anything from Owen Turtenwald, but
I don't think it's possible.
I don't think you can. I think the man is just that good.
Man posted a video on Twitter today of him opening a random pack from Walgreens.
It was a thought.
And there's a lot of nuts here. It's just like, how? Why?
I think so. The video was insane too because it's like silent, and then he like just like pulls it around and just deece, and that's the end of the video. So, I think if you asked Owen, and I don't want to say this for sure. My only interaction with Owen was getting beaten by him in a top 8 of an open. So, and he was very cordial afterwards, and we discussed sideboard and that sort of thing. So, I think he would probably recognize that like maybe he didn't feel he drew very well or whatever else, but I think he would have to recognize too that he got beat.
Yeah,
solidly. So
I think Owen as a person would respect the player in question here,
right?
Definitely, and I think the whole bias thing is something that we've seen in the past many times.
Yeah, and I don't know. I hope they would. I have no Matthias, I don't know if you've ever listened to this, you know what I mean? But if you did, strongly consider going back and reviewing that, seeing if you can change your language a little bit. Like we were discussing, he was talking about how like Funkhauser's playing a power game and like Turtle's playing a finesse game, and I'm like, you do as one of those sounds like an idiot swinging a club, and the other one sounds like a chess player, right? Like those words alone, you may think you're creating a narrative that sounds fair, but you're making one of them seem lesser. Like you're doing that. So I don't know, just. Random
aside.
Sure. Something that grinds my tears, I guess.
Yeah, it was a mini grind your tears segment.
There you go.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's enough for standard. Let's move into modern. There was a modern classic, of course, that happened. It was taken down by everyone's favorite deck, Green White Hexproof, piloted by Justin Hancock.
Ooh. Best deck in the fields, not close.
I mean, it was it was used to take down Storm. in the finals, piloted by James Zorns.
I just want to note the Storm player in question, James Zorns, one of the best players playing Storm I've ever seen. He used to Justin Reich knows him personally, and he showed me a video of the guy playing, and it's masterful. It's really, really good. Yeah,
I mean, it would make sense if you see someone playing like Storm,
or like
you would
like
you would expect them to be playing the deck well. It's not. I mean, in modern specifically, Pyromancer's Ascension Storm is not something that is typically very popular. Yeah. I mean, a lot of people. It's a deck that is always around there, but it's not as powerful as its legacy brother, if you will.
Yeah, I really like the increasing vengeance in the list.
Yeah.
So that's so sweet.
It's a little bit of spice.
A little bit.
Yeah. Sure, but I mean, like this is I would say fairly typical of what you would see from from that deck, as far as standard lists.
Gift Storm is the standard now.
No,
this is Gifts and Given Storm.
This is definitely Gifts and Given Storm.
Oh, is it?
Yeah,
I didn't notice
there's no Ascensions in this list.
Correct.
Oh, gotcha. Well then,
it is actual Storm.
That's egg on my face, I suppose. Yeah. Anyway, yes. Then this is not.
That's why the vengeance is so sweet, because you can just dump it for free off the gifts essentially.
Nice. Okay, well then this is a cool list, and I wouldn't have any idea how to play it, but
yeah, me neither.
Yeah, me neither. But it looks really complicated, and I'm sure that he has earned his right to be in second place.
He's earned his stripes.
Yeah, for sure.
Hey, there's only 2 copies of Eldrazi decks in the top 8,
so no banning happening, right?
Oh no, they're still gonna ban that deck, because like
course.
when you look at like everything else around it, it's just like so it's just Eldrazi and decks that are good against Eldrazi.
Yep.
Interesting.
Theoretically,
cool.
Yeah.
Hey, Esper gives top 16.
It did.
Oh,
it did.
Yeah, it did.
We also have Teamer Control.
I like this list.
Showing up, piloted by John Sauer, or Sauer, whatever. 4 snaps, 4 Tarmogoyfs, and 2 P and Kier Nalar. You just like it because there's P and Kier Nalar in it.
Yeah,
it's basically a Rug Twin without the twin.
Yeah, pretty much.
Pretty much what the deck is.
You got 2 Batter Skulls instead, because Kolaghan's command is probably at an all-time low at this point in time.
So, like, what Rug is a color? Is it like a turquoise-ish color? Like, it's like if we combine the Rug colors together.
Red. So if we put red, blue, and green.
Yeah.
If you took your little Bob Ross palette and mixed them all together,
what do you get?
I have no idea.
Not a clue. I'm color deficient.
Well, so am I. So
Okay.
I'm gonna call this like I don't know, like turquoise moon.
Turquoise.
Because it's not blue moon.
Sure.
But it's really close.
All right.
Are you gonna Google this?
Mm-hmm.
Man, I hope there's like an interactive palette through Google.
I'm sure there is. I'm positive there is, in fact.
Or there's just a search engine that asks Bob Ross. That'd be sweet too. And it's like a digitized
Or you just open
Bob
up like a
Ross.
copy of Photoshop and just go 255 on all the colors. That's another way to do it.
Oh man.
Just keep talking. I'll get back to you.
Okay.
Yeah. So it plays like I don't know, cards. A Harvest Pyre as a sweet one of, which is always cool.
The card starts heyday. many years ago too.
Yeah, back when you could like hit your own Boris Reckoner,
yeah.
which was sweet. I don't understand. It's not giving me an answer. Why is the internet failing me on this?
What are you talking about?
The colors.
Oh, apparently it's either black or white. So there you go.
Oh, okay.
I can't make white.
Apparently it can. That's what I'm getting.
I want to see it. I want proof.
I'm like
Black
90
makes sense. Black is what happens when you mix all the colors
Correct.
together.
I don't understand white there.
Yeah,
either.
that doesn't make sense. Any other decks you really want to talk about here for Modern? We do have Elves showing up in top 16, which is another deck that sort of gained some prominence. The GPs.
Yep.
The Eldrazi Storm
half
a few weeks
half
ago.
the team was was on the elves as their
But this is definitely
choice.
a different version of Elves. This is you don't have the Cloudstone
It's
Kyrios
the
or
regular
something like that.
grindy
Yeah, this
version.
is the Lead
yeah.
the Stampede version.
Yeah.
So.
Correct.
And that card is like super sweet in this deck because you're only playing like 18 lands and so you can like definitely hit 3 like fairly consistently. And there's definitely moments where you're playing against this deck where your opponent hits like 5 elves and they can cast most of them, and you're just like, well, all right, let's go ahead and scoop these on up. Let's go ahead.
When I made my brief foray back into Modern,
I remember this.
a couple
Yeah.
months ago, I got turn 1 by Amulet Bloom because he was playing Sin Spirit Guide, so I stopped playing elves.
Aw.
And then I moved back away from the format. So
Yeah, I remember. I think I played against the first round of that.
yes, you did,
Modern.
and I had no idea what I was doing. It was my first event with the deck, and it was cool, but not something I would want to relive.
Yeah, but yeah, you see like Infect making another sort of return of prominence here with 3 copies in the top 16. So again, once we mentioned before how the Chalice version of this was definitely the Pro Tour version of it, and once the Chalices have been sort of removed, then the format goes back to 1-drop. Interesting enough, though, the Burn is still not a deck that's been making a comeback. Sorry, Burn.
Yep.
Chalice is really oppressive against that deck a lot of the time, and then you also just like don't really have a whole lot that you can necessarily do.
Like the cards that are good
against
against Eldrazi are also good against Burn.
Yeah, exactly.
So kind of runs into that issue too.
I wouldn't expect it to really come into prominence again until we see some kind of banning happen, basically.
It doesn't have passive progress, so it can't deal with Eldrazi at all. So.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. So hopefully the deck will fare better after that. But I think that's pretty much it. I mean, Modern, we won't really expect to see a shakeup with it until we see some sort of movement as far as like the ban and restricted list in Modern.
You could just sort of feel the lull. There's no major like events this weekend, and like we have pre-releases the weekend after that, so you get the lull of just sort of like all the formats are now sort of waiting.
Yeah.
Like, all right, at least the formats that matter.
Oh wow, sick burn. Speaking of formats that
Yep, that's the first of many jabs you'll hear. So no big deal.
I'm just trying to transition like a professional.
Okay, sure.
speaking of formats that matter, Legacy.
It's all right. I'm used to it at this point, so no worries at all.
Now, if you want to talk about burn, there's a burn list that shows up here in the top 8,
baby.
3rd place, piloted by Ryan Lott.
Hilarious.
I will say that the lists that are on the SCG's website are actually misnamed in some cases.
Sure. Is burn misnamed?
No, burn
Okay,
is fine.
Accurate, fair
Burn's
enough.
correct.
Good.
Abzan Stoneblade is actually just Maverick.
Yes.
And then there's one
They
label.
forgot.
Yeah, there's one labeled Death and Taxes, which is actually Abzan Stoneblade.
Oh.
And then
What?
so on. It's 9th, I believe.
Okay, I was like, what? Man, that's real bad. And then, okay, so there's Maverick named. Okay. So
Yeah, Maverick is should be.
Oh,
Abzan
never mind.
Stoneblade.
They did fix the names.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
when
yeah.
they originally came out, the Death and Taxes list that was 4th place was labeled Maverick, and that was definitely Death and Taxes.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, they were definitely.
All right,
huge
so they
issues
went
there.
back.
Yeah, they wouldn't fix it, so no worries.
I'm gonna probably struggle with this poor person's name.
Tianyi Zhao.
Tianyi Zhao.
Yep.
Was the victor playing Miracles.
He's actually a grinder that people don't know much about because the Miracles grinding scene has kind of been taken over by Joe Lasat.
Yes.
Because he's like the biggest name out of there. But Tianyi Zhao is actually one of Joe's quote unquote disciples.
I see.
He's a big fan of the stream. That
Interesting.
Joe,
Does
Joe
Joe Lasset play a big role in Shadows over Innistrad, being a cult leader?
Possibly. We'll see.
He seems pretty lovable, to be honest.
Yeah, he's a nice guy. So
Did he not play a sideboard, or they just not post?
they did not post a sideboard.
Okay.
Yeah, the sideboard is very similar to what Joe's is though. So
Fair enough.
Just didn't play sideboard. He's got.
it was that good.
It was that good. Just
Who needs
made-
it? Who needs
just
a sideboard?
15 islands.
All the Atogs.
Nothing really notable about his list in general, except I guess cutting the fourth source of plowshares in favor of the first Supreme Verdict, which is something that people like. The Eldrazi deck is now existing in Legacy, as you guys talked
Correct.
about.
Yeah,
last
there's actually
cast.
two lists here in the top 16 and 14th and 15th place of the colorless Eldrazi list, which is basically a better version of Mud, pretty much.
Essentially, yeah. I know you guys touched on your last cast. Basically, it's a more consistent version of Mud, and you can choose to play lock pieces, or you don't have to. You can like play more creatures. There are many directions you can go with the deck, and it's not nearly as impressive as it is in Modern.
Oh gosh,
Not
no.
even close.
Yeah.
It's very beatable.
Yeah, I mean, you just have access to so many different kinds of cards. I mean, you have access to a card called, Swords to Plowshares if you really want to. You have access to, other pieces of interaction between the deck.
The biggest like form of hate against the deck overall, as evidenced in a tournament that happened in Maryland this past weekend. 60 players showed up. They were battling for a Mox Sapphire, and the top eight was 5 lands.
Yeah.
1 Life from the Loam, 4 color loam deck. 1 Shardless, 1 Miracles, and then 1 Death and Taxes. So, and Eldrazi did not make like past round 4.
Right.
Because all these loam strategies hate out the deck so.
Well, yeah. I mean,
well.
if you're gonna just keep rebuying Wastelands,
Yeah.
then yeah, that's gonna make it hard to cast
like,
anything.
You have like Wasteland, Maze of It, Tabernacle of Pendrevale. All those cards are really good against Eldrazi. So.
Right. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, it's fairly impressive to see a pseudo new archetype. I mean,
Oh,
it's not
definitely.
It's not completely whole new, but pseudo new.
There's always been like kind of a stompy like tier 3 strategy in Legacy overall, but this kind of brings that excuse me that to the forefront,
Yeah.
and that's never happened before. And people are adjusting now, and that's great. And I think overall it increases the health of the format.
Yeah. It's pretty interesting to see. I think Burn a lot of times going back to the third place list is kind of an underrated legacy list because it's budget, comparatively to Miracles or like Team or Delver or something like Shardless Bug. Like
it also struggles against counterbalance. Like you don't even have to have the
It has
Divining
the
Top.
past,
So
yeah.
that card is a struggle for this deck, which is you've seen Miracles be very, very good. So I'd have to assume that Burn by proxy falls. Though I guess if you were playing against Eldrazi every round, man, Price of Progress.
Well, here's the thing: the dichotomy of Burn has kind of evolved like very recently with the printing of Exquisite Firecraft. That card is extremely good. I don't necessarily like the list that top aided here.
Yeah, Ryan Lott's list.
Yeah, there are a few problems I have with it, but I'm not gonna go too much into detail. The one that Ari Lax piloted to a second place finish a couple weeks back against Joe Lissette, I thought his list was perfect.
Gotcha.
He has 4 Firecrafts on the sideboard, specifically because the only matchup you're really too worried about is Miracles. And the whole Burn versus Eldrazi thing pretty much hinges on Eldrazi drawing their lock pieces, while Burn draws a bunch of 1-drops.
Gotcha.
And that would cause problems. But obviously, Pax of Progress is very, very good.
It's nice to see that if you have this deck in Modern, theoretically you could pretty easily transition it over
The
to
Eldrazi deck?
No, the Burn list.
Oh, yeah.
If you have Burn
definitely.
of Modern, you can relatively easily transition over to Legacy for some expense, but not necessarily a whole lot, and still have success with it, which is great to see. So,
And the biggest thing I think is a lot of people don't really they kind of think Burn is a lowy strategy because it is rather cheap to build, but I think you definitely have to respect the deck, and I think the deck is definitely still tier 1.
awesome, good. Anything else of note to pull out of this, Legacy Classic, Min, since we have you here?
Nothing too particular, but I guess the biggest thing to take out of it overall is that people are adjusting to the fact that Eldrazi is a deck in the format now.
Yeah.
And the adjustments aren't that major.
Yeah, and regardless of what happens, I don't foresee anything happening in Legacy
not even
for
close.
banning. So
No.
it's always going to be something that you'll have to play against, and it's kind of nice to see Mud players kind of get an upgrade theoretically.
I actually, like I said, I'm happy the deck exists. Also, people rag on Miracles a little bit less because the deck, for the most part, crushes Miracles. As like if you look at a matchup to matchup kind of thing,
Right.
The deck is very good against Miracles. It's very well positioned, and Miracles was kind of teetering on the peak of like, this is the best deck. Why wouldn't you just play this deck? And now Eldrazi's here, and now people are looking elsewhere.
Good. So it's like the introduction of these cards has kind of given Miracles a foil,
At
basically.
least the Eldrazi have increased the health of one format.
Of one format, yeah.
fair enough. I mean, if there's a format that needed some more diversity, why not?
Yeah,
Why not
definitely.
make it
I also, I guess, real
legacy?
quickly, I want to point out there's a name in the top 8 here that you might remember, Morgan. It's Clay Spickelmeyer.
Oh, hey, yeah,
It's one of the people that plays with Elliot out there in
yeah,
Indy.
most
And
certainly. Congrats on your fifth place finish with Infect.
yeah, and he had an open top 8
Not too long ago.
Yeah,
It was
late
the
last year.
Yeah, it was the last
So
Open in
Cool.
Indy before this one. So
so there you go.
he is definitely someone who
He was piloting Infect, so
yeah,
And he's like super young.
yeah,
Like,
he's a kid.
cool.
So
that's
yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, definitely a bright future for that kid.
and Jesse Hefner playing Miracles in 6
Yeah.
as well.
Mhm.
So
He actually picked up the deck relatively recently too. Hefner did. Josh Todd also,
Yeah,
Ohioan.
Yep, most
Fantastic Goblins player, bringing out the little white man this time.
oh, poor goblins.
certainly. Yeah, there's only so much.
Yeah.
There's so many times you can play goblins. I feel like that deck needs like a shot in the arm of something.
If only Lackey was a 2/2. If only.
I'm so sorry. No, I'm not sorry. I'm not really that sorry.
I'm also not sorry. I like I said, I play Miracles. I don't want it to be a 2/2.
Right,
So-
exactly.
So 2/2 Lackey confirmed. Is that what we're saying?
Oh gosh.
Yep.
Anyway, that's so much for the classic. But let's transition into our that's a good stepping off point into our better know format segment. We might rehash a couple of things, but
I guarantee you I will.
probably. But we have Minh on. He is very much so experienced with Legacy and Vintage more than likely, right?
More than any other format, which is kind of bizarre to say.
I mean, it's not. I don't feel like it's bizarre. So I'm relatively like recent to the competitive scene. I started playing competitively, really kicking it into like high gear, probably RTR, so Return to Ravnica, and Innistrad,
Okay, yeah, that's about the same time I started.
and looking at like the older formats were like really enticing. Like looking at Legacy, and even back then it was probably far more enticing than it was at this point in time due to like price changes and
Yeah.
everything like that. So it was enticing, but it was not something that I at that point in time had the money to really invest in. So it was just something that was always just like, yeah, whatever. If I ever want to play it, I'll borrow a deck. But even then, like,
You're not too invested into it.
yeah, and it was just like it is a format that I feel like really rewards investment, not only with like picking up a particular deck and like putting the time into it, but also investing in the actual format, knowing what the other decks do and how your deck, what position your deck is in week to week, and how your matchups line up.
Yep.
So it's just not something that I really cared about. But you kind of have the opposite story then. So you started
A little
the game,
bit, yeah.
and then you saw these formats and were enticed by them more than I was.
It was a little bit of like my favorite card, that standard format, which I didn't actually get to play too much with until the very end of it, was Snapcaster Mage. Before then, I played like Junk Reanimator, and that was the fun thing to do because I'm coming back from like casual.
They just fist
Reanimator
bumped.
thing.
If you didn't know, Morgan's favorite card of all time is the Acidic Slime.
Ah, yes, that was a lot of fun.
I don't like my opponents to play
My
Magic.
actual first ever competitive event was an FNM, if you can really call that competitive. And I believe in the finals I met you. It's the first time I met Mike Kenny here. And we had an awesome like slugfest. And I'm sure I played very poorly, but I think I surprised you by having main deck Fiend Hunters, which was not a thing back then. It was like the week before it actually became a thing. I'm very proud of that, for the record.
I do not recall.
That's okay.
Is this a testimony in a courtroom? I don't.
No, I legitimately don't remember. I'm sorry.
It's okay. It's just it was one of my memorable things because it was like the first time I got to taste that kind of like playing tightly rewards you really well, and that got me into competitive Magic in the first place. And then I picked up Esper Control momentarily with Snapcaster Mages, and then the deck rotated out. Well, rather, the card Snapcaster Mage rotated out, and I followed it. I went into Modern, and I played like the Blue-Eye Red Control format with like the Shahar Shinar Worlds from 2013 list. And that was great and all, and then Blue-Eye Red became really bad in Modern for a really rather long period. And I was like, what do I do now? And then my friend Ben Crine, a guy I went to college with, he lives in Chicago. Hey, Ben. I don't know if he's listening, but a really good friend of mine, and he started buying the Legacy. Built Bug Delver, I believe it was, originally. And I was like, I was originally the mentality like, oh, these cards are way too expensive. I would borrow it if I ever wanted to play it. I just continued trying to make my Modern deck work in a format that wasn't well equipped for it. That was the pod season. And then eventually I decided to take my first foray, and then I built Storm, which Jesse Liu, another Columbus local, lent me. And it was the most fun I'd ever had playing Magic up until that point. So it's like, all right, I'm going to sell everything and buy into this format, and I did. And I picked up a couple decks here along the way, but eventually I settled. This was like a real quick transition too. It was like within 3 months, and then I found the deck that I eventually now come to love as Miracles,
Awesome.
and that's pretty much how I got started.
So, why would you say why would you say it's your favorite format? If it is, I don't know.
It is.
Okay,
It is, in
Legacy.
fact, yeah.
I don't know
Legacy
between
is my
Legacy and
favorite
Vintage.
format.
I don't know which one. So,
Well, I think part of it is the reason. Part of the reason is that I think it's the format that I've just managed to invest the most time into because I never found it to be really solved. And back in like high school and like before I discovered Magic, really, I'm a pretty competitive guy. And when it comes down to like trying to find like I played the Yu-Gi-Oh card game for a little while before it became horribly unbalanced.
Oh, okay. Wrap it up.
this is all trash now. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. If you're a fan of that, I'm sorry I can't. And I played chess like religiously, and so I likened learning.
Makes sense. There's bishops in that game, so I hadn't got that look yet this podcast, so I had to.
I just likened learning that deck to kind of like playing chess in a format where everyone had the same tools. And there are cards that exist in Legacy that don't exist anywhere else, obviously, like Force of Will, which is also a card in Vintage. But the card that drew me most towards it was interaction that Brainstorm had with fetch lands. And I think that is Legacy in a nutshell. And I know people hate it, or they love
Jeff
it.
Hoogland, mainly.
Jeff Hoogland, mainly, yeah.
He hates
absolutely.
Brainstorm so much.
I mean, he's played the card before. I don't know what's wrong. I don't know what he want from me.
It's because he has to, Minh. He feels that he has to.
No, and I think I guess I can pick up that flag and run with it a little bit. So I have a much longer history with the game, though competitively, actually not that much longer than you guys. I when I played in high school, and going into college, I didn't really get beyond like the local level too much. I played competitively, quote unquote, but it was like FNMs and that sort of local thing. So but I played Legacy when it was 1.0 or 1.5.
1.5.
Yeah, 1.5. Okay, well, because it extended whatever. But
Right.
But like, and I played like Mono Blue Shackles and that kind of stuff, and and enjoyed the format to some extent. And then when when I played it, like I played Accumulated Knowledge, and Accumulated Knowledge is still probably one of my favorite Magic cards of all time. And I felt like a lot of the cards that made Legacy enjoyable are now like they're relics. You know what I mean?
They're like unplayable.
Unplayable in pretty much any format, actually. But
Fact or fiction.
yeah, of course. And I don't want to say that's a reason why I don't like a format because obviously cards go in and out.
Right.
But like, I've not enjoyed the creep the combination of like new cards and old cards and how I've never enjoyed the way that like you don't play Magic in that format. You know what I mean? Like, so I'm actually like I'm not too upset about like ubiquitous of Brainstorm. I do think though that you end up with blue decks doing that. Decks that are so desperate to try not to do that they're not as good, or decks that aren't playing Magic. And that section of decks that don't play Magic in that format are really my problem with that format. And I don't begrudge anyone who wants to play them. You say you picked up Storm and loved it. I've never I've played Storm. I had it in Modern for a while. I played it in Standard when it was when it was a thing.
For the record, those two decks are very different beasts.
No, absolutely, no, they absolutely are.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying though is like especially the Legacy version of that deck, like the idea is to not play the same game as your opponent.
Right.
And there are games of Magic I enjoy in this format. We've had long conversations about that. The deck that when I do play Legacy, I play Shardless Book because I like playing grindy, fair kind of decks. And I, maybe it's arrogance on my end that's like, man, I don't know why people don't like doing this more because I find those games fun. Like playing Shardless against like a Stoneforge deck, like a Stoneblade deck. Man, I could do that. I could do that multiple times. That is fun. But playing against any of the decks that just decide that like, all right, well, I really don't care what you're doing. I'm going to do this. Do you have the answer card for it? No. Yes. Okay, cool. Do you not have the answer card for it? Oh, okay, you lost. It's like, oh, okay, cool. Well, I don't know. I don't know. The people say that like it's it's the format of champions, of kings, and it's like, well, it's still a lot of times in my mind like a yes or no format.
It can be, and it definitely has been in the past over many like if you took like a snapshot of a format in time, you could definitely take that kind of just kind of experience from it. The biggest thing in Legacy though now especially, I think the current format today is one of the healthiest it's been in a very long time. There are decks that kind of like are two ships passing in the night, and if you actually completely hilarious note, if you go look at Chris Anderson's most recent article about like unbanning certain things in Modern, you'll see in the comments section Jeff Hoogland's talking about how you shouldn't have Forcible in the format, and there's a long little tirade there. And Jeff Hoogland actually brings up a decent point. I don't say this very often, unfortunately. I mean, the guy is pretty smart, but he comes off sometimes as more forward. Than
He's aggressive with his opinions. You can say that.
Sure, but he does have some good points, and he does mention that Legacy is kind of a format that could be two non-interactive decks passing in the night, and then there's two interactive decks that are like playing constant grinding games of Magic, and I enjoy those too a lot. I like grinding my opponent into the dirt. I enjoyed
a Miracles player who likes grinding his opponent into the dirt.
You got me there.
Big fan of Anafenza then at that point in time.
Shocking announcement. It's 9 to 10.
Well, but a lot of it boils down to matchups and basically picking the right deck for the format. And I think that's where Jack Fulin's actually correct. And again, don't quote me on this one.
Oh, we're gonna snip that part out and just
send it to him.
Yeah, just play it.
I think you choose your role in the format based on what deck you play, and that's obviously true in any format. But in Legacy in particular, because it's so different, and you could there's a mono white deck in the format whose best matchup is the non-Earth Storm deck. Like that is a huge thing to have, and I don't think you can get that in any other format. Well, besides Vintage, but I'm not getting into that right now. But like for example, you can have Shardless versus Miracles, and that matchup is a grind fest, and it is fantastic. I love playing that matchup.
It's fun.
It is a blast, and it really rewards people that know the format because you know your role, you know what you need to do. I know I need to, for example, Terminus into Intrigue.
Are you gonna make a wrestling reference?
I just wanted to say and shut your mouth. That's all I wanted to say. You know your role and you shut your mouth, and that's it. Go ahead. Continue.
Right? No. Like you know what you need to do. Like if you're playing, let's say Maverick against against Show and Tell. You know you have to have a Gaddock Teague or a Caracas or a Thalia. You know what you need to do if you've played the format a fair amount of times, and it really rewards somebody who like goes out, does the research, does like the testing, the matchup the analysis, and everything they would do to actually play out the format. Like in my opinion, Miracles is like the true control deck of the format, and it rewards me for having kind of learned the ins and outs of the rest of the decks of the format. So if I were to go out and play Miracles tomorrow, I mean, I will. It's actually a thing that's happening. I know my role, what's in any matchup, any given matchup, no matter what it is, even if it's out of left field completely. And I know what I need to do to win the game, 99% of the time. And that's mostly because I watch a lot of content, I read a lot of content, and I play a lot of Magic.
Yeah, and I think that's true. Of most formats. I think Modern before the Eldrazi, exploded all over it. Was like that too, and I've actually defended Modern for that for a long time. Modern obviously has more powerful, it has more of those like sideboard cards that I think do
just
probably
blow up the game
a little bit much. But I've also, I agree. I think any format is really like that, where you could assess the format, you're rewarded for knowing a deck well. I mean, you know the deck that I play in Modern. Giftstron is not a common deck, but I've been rewarded in the past for knowing that deck very well, and I think that's that does signify health of the format. I will agree with you. Yeah. I would not argue that Legacy is an unhealthy format. That's it just never has. All throughout the history we play in the game, like what I enjoy. You say like you like chess, right?
Yes.
Would you like chess if you played it as like by yourself?
Absolutely.
Just by
yeah.
What do you mean?
Yeah, I'm not joking.
No opponent.
Yes.
How would you enjoy that?
Because you learn how to beat yourself.
No. I'm saying like your opponent's pieces don't move.
Oh, that's nothing.
That's you're actually right. It's literally nothing. It's literally nothing.
Yeah,
and that's what I feel like.
Yeah.
But I think that's how a large part of like Legacy plays out. And like you can watch matches like this where it's like even the matches where like you see where the ships passing in the night. I can mention like the Elves deck. I think is a good example of this where. On one hand, you could look at it for take a Riley Curran, this is an Elves master, or a local player. I having watched him play enough, you can tell that some players just don't even know what he's doing.
Correct.
Right, and that's a testament to him. That's a skill for him. But there's a lot of games too where like it may look like you're playing Magic, like it looks like your players are playing Magic, but because of like the deck that you're playing against, right? And literally it's like, oh, okay, well I think he's gonna get a lot of guys into play, and like they just die the next turn, and they had no option to do anything about it. They didn't have the force in hand, they didn't hit the Thoughtseize, they just tried to play a land and and keep whatever spell they keep up, and it's like, okay, well, cool, that's great. For all the stuff you say about Hoagland, he's been literally playing Belcher.
Yep.
That's what he's been
Belcher,
streaming with.
Tinfins, etc.
And it's just like and I think like he's out to prove a point, like by playing those decks. You know what I mean? Of just like
He is, but he also loses constantly.
and that's and that's the downside of playing a deck like that. Belcher is obviously a glass cannon.
Quite literally.
Yes.
I don't know if they had like glass on Mirrodin like
All
that.
right. Well, it's definitely a cannon.
But it's definitely a cannon.
There's a literal cannon involved.
But like I don't know. I guess for me, it's always been very difficult, to wrap my mind around that aspect of playing the game. And I've certainly played combo decks in the past, but I don't know, the idea that like I'm going to a tournament and I hope to not play Magic, and there's a strong chance that my opponents will not play Magic with me. It's like the guy who like randomly spikes a tournament with Dredge. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It's just like you actually like just sat down and played a different game than your opponent, and it's not the game that when I look at modern Magic, like and I guess I'll ask how you feel about this, but look at standard Magic, and if you don't like standard, that's fine. There's plenty of people who don't. It's a different game entirely than what it used to.
Yeah.
And I think the relics of the broken things, the broken thing that Magic was, because you can argue you like that stuff and you like Legacy better, but there's a distinct reason why Wizards stopped doing that, because the game almost died, and why that format, you could say it's priced, but why that format has never reached the numbers of other formats. You know what I mean? These things broke the game, and I just don't see why, outside of a few psychopaths who only want to play solitaire. You know what I mean? Sorry, everybody.
No, it's okay.
But you're a psychopath.
Not denying. In any case, sorry, you were.
I said they just want to see the end of the solitaire where all the cards go all crazy.
I think the whole Legacy as a form of solitaire thing is kind of, while it was.
I'm going to quantify. I've been saying subset.
Okay, sure.
I'm
a subset
no
of Legacy
declaring
is a form of solitaire. Sure, I think has been kind of seen upon in the past, and I think that's kind of the stigma behind Legacy in general. And you bring up really good points with that. But I think overall, you have the tools in any deck across any format to be able to be competitive in it, regardless of what you want to be doing. If you want to, say you're playing Shardless and you're playing against Storm, that naturally is a matchup that's very heavily in favor
Delicious.
of Storm. Yes, because Shardless has like the you're playing 3 mana cards. You're doing things that may or may not be interactive with the opponent, but you have a 2 mana 4/5 here. Maybe it'll work. Maybe it won't. Maybe you'll die. Who knows? But I think you have the tools. You have the ability to kind of tool the way you want to. A very famous player in Europe. He goes by the MTGO name Lejay. He's very famous for kind of piloting and building shardless and hateful other decks, because he refuses to play the whole the combo feel of it, right? He first popularized playing a white source and then meddling mages in the sideboard, and that was huge. Like that blew the whole Shardless versus Storm thing wide open, and then Shardless actually became favored, and then people adapted again, and people were playing Sadistic Sacrament for a little while just because it killed Storm, and there are cycles here and there, but I think the fluidity of it is what I enjoy the most, and I think that part of Legacy isn't really touched upon very often, because people kind of look at it once and say, I didn't have Forcible, I died, alright, I'm gonna go home now.
Sure, and I don't want to simplify the format that way. I've said before, it's definitely not a favorite format of mine, but I have played some very fun Magic in Legacy. Like, the cards still do what you want to do. It is, I agree, it's inherently fun to cast Brainstorm, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's, supremely skill intensive. I don't always buy the it's more skill intensive than other formats, because I think it's, again, a different type of Magic.
Yeah, and I apologize if I did say that.
No, you didn't. I'm just making a point. You didn't say that.
Okay.
I don't think you've come off that way at all.
Yeah.
But I think it's important. I don't know. I just feel like there's just something. There's just certain things in that format where I can play a whole tournament and like walk away, and all it takes is one match where it's just like, Yeah, it's cool that they, obviously I played White Source's Meddling Mage for a little bit. I adapted with that when I played it, but at the same time, like you can still just like, oh, I did draw my Meddling Mage and I'm done playing the game. Whereas if your opponent plays a creature and attacks you, you know what I mean? Unless you are already facing lethal right then, like you have time to craft around it. You have shifting. I feel like more. You talk about fluidity, right? And maybe that is something that I'm not giving credit to in Legacy, but I do feel like there are a number of decks in that format that don't allow for fluidity. It is a have it, don't have it, move on, and that inherently suggests that there isn't as much fluidity. So
That may be true, but those decks that do say, for example, Belcher, I think that's a pretty polarizing thing. Belcher asks you to have it, and if you do have it, you might still die because you can have a Force of Will and then they empty you.
right,
Or if you have a Flusterstorm, then they Charbelcher you, like as an example, and that does happen. Like that tomorrow the GBT, I'm expecting a few number of Belcher players, and that's just going to happen. There's going to be, you'll have Dredge, that they don't care what you're playing, they're going to dredge you. But when you have the ability to plan around them and just like blow them out of the water, then you move on. And there's an ebb and flow, kind of like how when combo decks like that become prevalent, a new deck or a new archetype kind of arrives or comes again that knocks them down a peg or two. For example, now Chalice is an all-time high in Legacy. So if you're planning on playing any of these Belcher / combo decks in general, you shouldn't be. You should be trying to do the fair route now. And I think at this point in time, because of the Eldrazi deck and because of the prevalence of Chalice of the Void becoming more of a normal, it's caused a lot of people to kind of want to try the format again. For example, if you were to play Shardless within the next, for like GP Columbus or whatever, that'd be a fantastic choice. Play as many Baleful Fortresses as you want. It's a great idea. As long as you play 4 Forcibles, you're fine. Just as an example, and I think...
No, I probably will be playing Charlotte at GP Columbus.
Okay. I just think that it's not talked about enough. That Legacy, it is different Magic than every other format. Definitely. You're not casting a Brainstorm in every other format. You're not pondering. You're not Snapcasting back whatever, Like, it's just not something you can do in other formats. And I think that introduces way too many variables for people to kind of transition from one form of Magic to another and inherently like it. I think because of you're kind of in a wild zoo that let out all the animals.
No, that deck's not viable anymore.
It's not. You're right. But if you were to like go to a zoo and let out all the animals, that's what Legacy is. Not necessarily all of them, of course, but like you have Brainstorm, you have your broken combo decks, you have your fair decks that do unfair things at times. You have your Miracles, for example, is a quote unquote fair deck that has a 1-mana Wrath effect. Like that, to someone coming from a standard environment, that is a very broken thing, and you don't want any part of it. But when you realize every deck has the possibility of doing these things, I think that's when you kind of reach a sense of parity. And I don't think it's discussed very often.
That's fair, and you make good points. You haven't sold me on Legacy still, and I'm sorry, but
That's fine.
people could be listening to this and they've heard me talk about we've had small discussions like this before and like why I don't, and they may just think that I'm a whiner or whatever else, and I think that's the one thing that's really nice though, and the one thing that I think if we could take anything away from this discussion, you know what I mean, is that people try really hard to like assert that formats are better, right? Like I mentioned before how like you see like the memes where it's like vintage is like this and like this, and then like a standard is like little kids fighting on, and it's like that. I think that's really unfair because I think you'll see even with like pro players there go look at like PV, like guy rocks standard tournaments. Mm-hmm. He had a huge resurgence this year, and will tell you how much he hates modern and has struggled with modern.
He despises modern.
And that's and like. That's fine. He's better with a certain format. He's better attacking on a certain axis. He doesn't like those certain points. And I think that's okay. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I think if we stop, I don't know. I think we should stop trying to compare them on like levels of skill levels of sophistication because I think they're just different. They're different skill intensive formats. You have to go into Legacy and like you said, know all of the decks. Mm-hmm. You have to go into Modern and you have to know all of the decks. You have to go into Standard and you have to know all of the decks. Yep. And if you aren't able to understand that like, tempo is tempo is a term I'll use broadly that its definition changes drastically on the format. in
It's absurd how much
in Modern and
yeah.
Legacy, tempo can be Swords of Plowshares, Path to Exile, whereas in Standard, tempo is Mana War right now, and it's absurd. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Tempo can be Wasteland, right? But that'll never be an option in Standard. So
Well, it would be option limited though.
I hate
currently.
you. I hate you so much, but you're right. Just ask BBD about getting strip mined to the Pro Tour.
So I'm gonna guarantee you that Mike's gonna have that done to him at the pre-release.
No, there's no expeditions in this one.
Oh,
Take that.
Rats.
If they do that to me, I get an automatic win because you can't have that in your deck. Get out. So I guess I think this is a fruitful discussion. Minh, you have not encouraged me to like Legacy more.
and in all honesty, well, that was kind of part of the show notes here. I didn't really intend to.
Yeah. How could you? I'm pretty stubborn.
Right. I mean, that's fair. But like the point I'm trying to make is Magic is different across all of those formats.
Sure.
Inherently, like in Modern, like you said, you have different tempo decks. In Standard, you have different tempo decks. In Legacy, you have different tempo decks, and there's no real parallel you can draw between any of them. And it's different strokes for different folks. Like, I enjoy casting Brainstorms, but I don't really enjoy attacking with the Siege Rhino. I've done it before. I didn't like it.
As long as you tried.
What?
As long as you tried.
I did try, and it felt kind of dirty, to be quite honest.
Yeah, that's the normal feeling.
Yeah.
That's true.
Okay.
Yeah, if you don't like that feeling, then you just don't like it.
And I'll even say this, like, for Shadows of Innistrad, like, just because I enjoy all the cards that are coming out of it, I want to play Standard for it. Just because I like sometimes dialing down the power level a little bit, but also, like, enjoying that kind of Magic. And it's something that I've been out of practice with for a very long time. I would love to get back into it.
Awesome. So I guess I don't know. Let's take a message of harmony between formats.
Yeah.
Put down the weapons.
Put down the pitchforks.
Share a Coke.
Yeah. Or Dr. Pepper. I heard that also is good at bringing people together.
So the commercials will lead you to believe.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Soda. Just have a soda with someone.
Have a soda.
Yeah.
All right. Cool.
Go find somebody who likes Legacy. If you don't like it, if you do like it, find someone who likes Standard.
Yeah. The one thing I will say is I definitely know people who have like strong opinions about formats, but have ever tried the format.
Yeah.
Like I have strong opinions on Legacy. I have played that format a ton. So I will say, like, if you're a person who is a hater, like, well, I agree with you, Legacy's stupid, but you've actually never shuffled up a deck, I will tell you, give it a try, because you may find something you actually fall in love with. It can be a card. Yep. It can be a single card that you've decided, like, that's... Look at the people who play Enchantress in Legacy. Man, they love casting some enchantments.
Look at the people playing Mono Red Maw-Catcher in Legacy. Oh, man. If there's a passionate group of people, it has to be the one person that does that.
The one person catching Mogs?
Yeah.
Yep.
So and that's true of of any format. Like I know Legacy players who Modern is just trash, and it's like, okay, well, what decks do you play? Oh, I don't play Modern. It's like, okay, have you played Modern? Like,
yeah,
it's easy to go from like, well, I play Legacy. It's like, well, you could enjoy Modern too. You could enjoy Standard too. You know what I mean?
Like I attempted to enjoy Modern again, but I kind of rediscovered it right in the middle of the beginning of Eldrazi Winter back at regionals. I quickly decided to not enjoy Modern for the time being.
I'm looking forward to, because the format never really got to flesh itself out after the Splinter Twin.
Yeah.
So I'm interested to see where the format goes. It could be super
Likewise.
aggressive still, but I think if it remains super aggressive, like I'm excited about these blue light. Now we're getting off topic, but like these blue light control decks that have come out in response to Eldrazi.
Yeah.
Like I kind of like how maybe a deck like that can finally like put its foot in the door and like bring control back to Modern.
It used to be a thing a couple years ago too,
and Jeskai control actually again does well in a format full of burn and infect, like playing a bunch of lightning helixes.
Yep.
Yeah,
it seems good to me. So I don't know. I'm excited to see where that format goes. And as much as I will get down on Legacy, when it gets closer to GP Columbus, I will be getting ready to shuffle up and play the format because I play it when I need to. And I don't know. It's been a while since I've cast the Charlotte's Agent. So
just a quick sidebar in regards to GP Columbus. I think metagame slight breakdown ish. There's in general in Legacy, there's always been like a triple threat. Like one deck balances the other, In this case, right at this second, as of today, we have Eldrazi, which I think is one of the best decks. Lands, which crushes Eldrazi. And then Miracles, which is decent against lands but gets crushed by Eldrazi. But the new lands deck that David Long popularized a couple at SCG Philly destroys Miracles. So I think lands is the best deck, and you should definitely keep an eye out for it.
No, that's probably fair. And find a way to, I don't know, like I always enjoy like playing Neo Spell Bombs and things like this. So it's time.
Leyline Voids.
Yeah, that one's sweet too. there was the last time I did play Legacy was when Jace was printed. Prince
wow.
Prodigy.
Yeah.
Remember, I was you saw it. I came up
The Pox deck.
the blue black Pox deck, and I could definitely boarded Leyline and Helm.
Mm-hmm.
Helm, so you could combo people off that way out of the board and just give them the big old finger for playing
Yep.
graveyard strategies.
Nice recipe, idiot.
So, and I enjoyed doing that for a day, and then I was like, "All right, I'm done."
Yep. Yep.
This is fun. Goodbye.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think all the formats of Magic when you really break them down are all important to the game's health. Overall, these are people that are going out, they're playing the game, they're getting the name out there, and if it's not something that's your cup of tea, that's fine. But just know that that's other people's lifeblood when the format, and try not to hate on it unless you try it. And if you put time and effort into it and you still don't like it, at least you have experience.
No one's making you do it.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
And I guess you're trying to be a pro, in which case,
sorry.
Good luck with that. Yeah.
But that's what I've always kind of felt with the formats. Even if it's something that I wouldn't prefer to play, I still do hope that it continues to exist. I guess that's kind of a good question to ask you, though. You said that right now is probably the healthiest the format has been, at least metagame.
In a little while, yeah.
What do you think about the overall health of the format, like the viability of it?
So I've been asked this question a lot, and what it boils down to, obviously, is another reserve list discussion. Like if they don't do the name of the reserve list, Legacy will die, etc. And like my first impression is, I don't like the reserve list, obviously, and I would be happy throwing away $1,000 for everyone to play this format.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. Until Wizards like, okay, we're going to be losing thousands of dollars, we should probably start doing this, whatever. Overall, though, the viability of Legacy, especially as something like in the GP circuit, which is what it is right now, it's on a proto format, obviously, isn't the best, unfortunately. And it really like makes me sad to say that. But that being said, like the past like 2 years, SCG has kind of been the purveyor of Legacy. Well, I mean, before that. But now they've definitely dialed back on their Legacy coverage and their Legacy events in general.
And then, I mean, to be honest, their events in general as
Right,
well.
yeah. And,
like, regardless of format.
And they've definitely been seeing like a lot of cutbacks. And people's first impressions was, okay, jump ship now, Legacy's dying. And I don't think that's the case at all. I think a lot of local, maybe not necessarily in Columbus, but a lot of local TOs have kind of taken up that mantle.
Mm-hmm.
You'll see like Mox Boarding House and Card Kingdom over in Seattle. You'll see Squabbles and like the Snapcasters stream in the Maryland, DC area. And there's people all over the country kind of taking up the mantle. They're more smaller events, more kind of, I guess, F&M-esque kind of deals, like 60, 70 people on average. But I think the Legacy scene's still alive, and I think it will continue to be so. Maybe like 3 or 4 years down the future.
Gotcha.
I think it's important to note that that's how Legacy came to even prominence. It was a format that really was once Extended became the big format. Like it really also still got the short end of the stick from like Wizards, but it really was local communities that really started building it back together until Star City sort of took up the mantle.
Right.
So if it gets to the price point where we've already seen some those dips in numbers from the Legacy, even the classics. But like if it goes back to those large communities, you know what I mean? That's not necessarily a bad thing.
No, not at all.
That's if you want to play the game, you can still play the game. It's just, they do that here with Comic Con does the in vintage events as well. If people are passionate about the format, you'll find a way to play the format.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And like Team Sirius is the vintage group that does the Comic Con stuff, and they. Vintage, by all intents and purposes, people have been calling it a dead format for years. But people still play it all over the country. There's still like a gigantic event with 1,000 players that happen every year. And if Legacy goes that way, it's a possibility. I mean, I'm not happy about it, but it's not going to die. Mm-hmm. You'll be able to play Legacy whenever you want.
Right. And, it's even in this kind of weird spot because we have Wizards doing something like Eternal Masters.
Right.
Which is going to pump a lot of reprintable cards back into the format.
And unfortunately, it's coming out the Friday of the Grand Prix weekend.
Nice.
So
okay, question to close with here. All right, I want a definitive statement. Okay, so say Eternal Masters has a ton of great staples. makes things like Force Will go back into like the $50 range. You've seen Force Will already dropping. Wasteland 2, the format becomes much more affordable outside of the dual lands. Does WotC ever ban the dual lands to preserve Legacy as a format? Don't be wishy-washy. Give me an answer.
It's a hard question to ask.
I know, that's why I wanted a definitive answer. I want to be able to look back at this and be like, see, Minh called it, or see, Minh, you're dumb.
All right. Well, there's a possibility I'm going to look dumb either way, and I'm going to accept that. I'm going to go ahead and say that if it comes down to it, then they will. Then I think they would ban the dual lands, and if they did, it would kill off some lands better. You know, that's kind of the whole.
Hey, shocks are fine.
Price of progress.
Hey, shocks are fine. Yeah,
But-
I'm assuming in that scenario there'd have to be a large restructuring of the formats.
Definitely. Things
examining
would
certain
change
cards.
heavily. But I think if it comes down to it, it's a possibility that they would entertain. That being said, that doesn't necessarily mean that there won't be pockets of people that still play the dual land legacy.
Right.
It would be a more casual format and be kind of the way Vintage is now with like playtest events, quote unquote. And that will probably be the direction of what happens, but the format would still exist. And I think that's kind of the key thing. I don't think Wizards is ready to let that go just yet.
No, I'm sure, but you heard it here first. Minh calls Wizards to ban dual lands and legacy.
Yep,
What a monster.
We're gonna cut that piece out too. Put that everywhere. All right, that was a lovely discussion we had about Legacy. A little underappreciated format, and if some of our listeners just turned us off, then I'm sorry. Welcome back. Let's go ahead and wrap up the show here. Yep. So over the weekend, it's Easter. There's not a lot of GPs. No opens, not
a lot. There's none.
None, as in
There's
nothing.
They're doing a better job with this because when they tried to do like GP Christmas the last few years and like you had like 500 people at a GP in Indy, they realized maybe major holidays are not the best
place
times
to do this. Yeah.
Right. We would say that there's a GPT for Legacy tomorrow. This is Wednesday, but you won't hear that before this. So
Right.
Well, we'll throw out. We'll see how the results turn out. Maybe we'll discuss something from that.
Yeah,
next
possibly.
Week.
We also have pre-releases in 2 weeks, so that's very exciting. We get the full spoiler here soon as well.
Friday.
week.
Yeah.
I think it's Friday.
I think it's
Really?
actually
Okay.
Friday.
So it's the week before. We normally get
Yeah,
it the week before.
you're right.
So if it's not Friday, it'll be like over the
Monday.
weekend or
Yeah.
Monday.
Yeah. So that's very exciting. Then we also have the Spring Classic on April 9th, which will also be hosted by Comic Town. And you can check out the pre-release events and the Spring Classic at comictown.net or by searching Comic Town Gaming Center on Facebook. While you're on Facebook, look us up. We're just at Your End Step. You can look us, do a quick search for that. You like our page, get all of our updates when our shows go live. Also, we have a Twitter. It's just at symbol Your End Step. So when you say it, it's just at Your End Step. It's great. It's very clever. You appreciate it. I appreciate it. Everyone appreciates it. We have a Gmail address. So if you want to send us any emails, fan mail, cool stuff your kids drew of us recording. I don't know.
More terrifying images of Eldrazi Sky Spawners growing on me.
Yeah,
Yes,
anything,
literally.
really.
Yep. Or hate mail
it's-
for me, whatever.
You won't get any hate mail. It's just at yourendstep at gmail.com. And that again is pretty much everything for this week. We do appreciate your time. And
So thanks again, Minh,
oh
for
yeah,
coming
yeah,
here.
yeah.
Oh,
Definitely.
Go ahead.
Pimp out your
Pimp
podcast.
the deets for.
Okay. Well, my podcast is with my friend Cody Napier, another kind of legacy state. He's more of the economist aspect of our dual dynamic here. It's called The Eternal Struggle. We're on SoundCloud currently. We'll be back on MTG Cast for our next cast.
Gotcha.
And you'll find us on there. We haven't necessarily set up a Twitter or anything just yet, but you can find me at Mini Hodge, and Cody, I believe, at Napier MTG, and
Okay.
you can find both of us on Facebook whenever.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you, Minh, for being on, for filling in Dave's slot.
Thank you for having me. I'm sorry I couldn't really, fill up his exact silhouette, but
That's all right. You were late to the podcast, so you basically did the
Yeah,
job.
it was the funniest thing I ever got. Like it's like text like I'm running behind. It's like man, it's like Dave never left or
became
never
short-
got here. I don't know which one I want to make for that joke.
just shrunk and turned brown.
Whatever. Anyway, we appreciate you guys for listening this week. We'll catch you next time. You have a great one. Bye.